What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and today I'm super excited to build what could be one of the best looking PCs I've assembled so far this year. A gaming PC that's packed with power for 4K gaming, powered by one of the most unique RTX 5080 designs out there, utilizes one of the fastest gaming CPUs on the market, more on this choice a little bit later, and is built inside Cougar's brand new CFV 235, a floating PC case that looks, frankly, insane. So without any further ado, let's dive into it. Corsair Custom Labs is here and supports a wide range of products and components, now including PC memory. Simply choose your desired Vengeance RGB configuration of speed and capacity and pick from one of the amazing custom designs. Whether you're into sci-fi or this amazing variation of Cherry Blossom, there's a myriad of options to pick from. You can match your peripherals with the same Custom Labs design too for a fully unified gaming setup, and even configure multiple product designs at once with live renders. Learn more about Corsair Custom Labs and check it out for yourself at the first link in the description below. Now I'm going to start today with the showstopper, the case, because I'm so excited to build in this. Just to be clear, this isn't sponsored in any way. I saw this at Computex when I was walking around the show floor and was like, wow, really different, but also the same as everything else. It's so clever. So what they've done is basically taken a standard single chamber PC case and actually split it into a dual chamber that's vertically built and not horizontally. Now what they've got is you've got your standard power supply area down the bottom. This is the digital version of the case, so it's got the screen on. I'm not sure about whether that's worth it or not. We're going to look at that later. And what they've done is they've essentially elevated the top chamber up, creating this gap. Now not only does this look really cool, but it also opens up possibilities for airflow in a big way. It means we can mount intake fans along the bottom here and pull in air from under the case without compromising on PSU temperatures, or of course suffocating the fans by virtue of the fact they're mounted on top of the power supply and can't get any fresh air. Other than that, it's a fairly standard affair. All the panels are as you'd expect. You have to take the top off in order to remove the glass side panels, like that. And if we open it up, you can see the inside of the case is pretty standard, the same as what you'd find on Fantech's T-View, for an example. As standard inside, you get this reverse blade fan units. This is actually 220 mils built into a single design. We get grommets, we've got reverse connect motherboard support, which is great, an integrated GPU support bracket, and a fan in exhaust at the rear. So yeah, pretty standard stuff really. Around the back, largely the same. Again, we've got that little ventilated area for those fans where they're going to pull in the air. And then we've got some ample cable management out the box, and an integrated fan and RGB hub, which is massive. Look at the size of that. That is enormous. So first impressions are pretty good. But of course, the proof is in the pudding. That's a pretty British saying. It means the proof's in the dessert. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it? Basically, we're gonna find out if it's any good once we're built in it. So what am I putting inside? Well, let's start off with the CPU and GPU combo. Processor first, I've gone for the last generation 7800X3D. The reason being, I actually think the 98's overkill for the 5080. The 98 is probably better in a 5090 build, and this is around $100 cheaper at the time of filming. Latest pricing and availability will be in the description below, and that makes it a great value chip. Graphics card, I've gone for this. This is a 5080 from MSI, and this is their expert model, and I really like this. It's got a Founders Edition inspired design with one fan at the bottom, which is going to push air through the graphics card, and one reverse blade fan at the rear, which is going to pull air through the graphics card. That essentially creates, in the case of the Founders Edition card, two chambers. I'm not sure whether this is particularly two chambers or whether it's one, and I can't see inside the GPU without taking it apart. It looks to me like one big heatsink. Or maybe two. Either way, it's a bit different, and I like that. The top is black, so it should still tie in nicely, and I think this like silvery goldy colour will look okay in the build. The only thing I don't really understand about this card, and it's only a small complaint, is this. So MSI put a cover over the PCI Gen 5 power cable, but I don't know why, because it's not got reverse connect motherboard support. You absolutely need to plug the power cable in, it's just not going to work otherwise. So I don't really understand that, if I'm honest. I guess it looks nice when you take it out of the box, but I don't really get what this is for after that. Maybe they intended to have reverse connect functionality and then just, I have no idea. Memory and SSDs. Now, this is an area, talking of money, that has got expensive. There's been a big deal recently with these AI companies where they've swallowed up loads of memory, and it's affecting SSDs and particularly DRAM kits. I've gone for G.SKILL's Trident Z5 Neo RGB. The reason being is, alongside being good in the performance department, it's one of the best looking DDR5 kits, maybe even the best looking design in my opinion, especially in black. The white one I'm not sure about because it's kind of two-tone. It should all be white. But anyway, this is going to look great in the build, and in a system where visuals are evidently of a high importance, I thought that was good. Storage, I've got a 2TB Samsung 9100 Pro. It's Gen 5, but it's a modest Gen 5 drive with read speeds of up to 14.7 gigabytes per second. Wow. We've reviewed this, the 1, the 2, the 4, there's an 8TB option, reviewed all those over on GeekaWhat.com, which you can find in the cards now. Let's talk about the power supply. Again, 850 watt for this build is probably on the, I wouldn't say it's on the borderline. I certainly wouldn't go any lower. But again, I worked out all the power consumption on this. 1000 watts just felt a bit overkill. This particular model is the A850 GLS from MSI. It's PCI Gen 5, so it comes with that 12 volt high power connector that we want natively. And it's ATX 3.1, which is the very latest standard. It's also cool as well here to see more cybernetics certifications. This one is cybernetics gold and 80 plus gold, so you know you're going to be good. And what's that one there? It's the PLP.info gold as well. I think MSI are kind of collecting power supply efficiency ratings like Pokemon. I think 1 or 2 is probably enough. I guess more is always better. Moving on, let's talk about the motherboard next. I've gone for one of my favourite X870 boards that's all black with some tinges of RGB to try and tie the whole thing together. This case does have, as I say, that integrated ARGB hub on the back, so we can hopefully control everything as one. And hopefully, when I take this out of the box, you'll see what I mean. It's just a really, really nice looking board. It's pretty beefy. It's the MSI Carbon. I think they are releasing a Carbon Max motherboard, which we haven't got in yet. I'm sure we'll take a look at that and review it when we have, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But this is rather good. Good PCI Gen 5 support. Everything's toolless, so all these M.2 heatsinks, you can just take them off really easily. You've got the Q-Code debug LED display, which I really like. That's going to make it super simple to debug if we have any boot problems or anything like that. So yeah, just a great motherboard all around. And I think one more component left to cover, and then I've talked about everything I'll be using today. Let's look at this, shall we? The Cougar Poseidon Vistek Pro ARGB 360. Now, this is a 360mm all-in-one. It comes with the same 120mm wide fan block, where it's all in one kind of unit as what the case comes with. Now, this one has an RGB strip, and I'm not sure whether that one does. It's also got a little screen on, so we can see CPU temps, usage, and fan speeds. I'm not sure if it's a fully digital display or like one of those fixed displays. We will find out. We've got ourselves the fan block. Let me see, is this the same? Yes, that one's got an RGB strip on too. So both of these have got an RGB accent strip, which once installed in the case, it's going to look really rather nice. Maybe they should do a 360 reverse one for the bottom. Maybe they already do. Maybe I should buy one. Maybe that's something we should look at. This is quite clever. So they've just got basically a standard all-in-one design, but the pump head is blank. And then you just basically pop on this little display module on top. And that looks really quite good, actually. The bezels look pretty thin. Design-wise, that looks nice. And then, of course, we've got a standard 360mm rad. We have tested this already, benchmarked it already on our test rig, and against our standardized CPU choices, it performs well. Not at the top of the charts. It's definitely not at the bottom for its other 360mm coolers. And considering it's got a screen, the price is fairly good. First job of the day then, now I've gone through the parts, is to get the CPU installed. The 7800X really, I feel like, just gets overlooked. Such a good CPU choice, such a good price, especially when you consider how much you'll pay for like a non-X3D Ryzen 7 processor as well. Chuck that in, pop the cover down, and then the arm is going to secure it into place. Memory is going to be next. I'll be whacking in my Trident Z5 Neo kit. Oh yeah. And rather helpfully, the second and fourth RAM DIMM slots have already been pulled back from, I guess, when I've used this board before, which makes sliding in this kit nice and simple. Once the RAM or the memory is installed, I'm going to go ahead and pop in the M.2 SSD next up. I'll be using the top slot, as of course we want that Gen 5 capacity, and it's fully toolless, making life nice and simple. So simple, in fact, that all you've got to do is push and lift the top M.2 cover, then slide the drive into the slot, like so, get it secured under the little toolless doodad, flicked around, and then slide the heatsink back on. And that's it. I mean, how easy was that? Once that's all done and dusted, I'm next going to check out the CPU cooler and figure out whether there's any prep I need to do for the mounting of this before moving the board into the case. With the CPU cooler, it's always worth referring to the manual, no matter how much your pride wants you to just do it anyway. Now, really, I should just read the manual, but part of me just wants to figure it out. Good news for me is that by the looks of things, I need to remove these stock brackets, which I have, already done, and then you're going to replace that with these posts just here that the actual cooler is going to secure down onto. And presumably, if we look at the bottom of the cooler, you can see this little bracket that comes pre-installed. That will probably need changing to an AMD bracket instead. Guessing in this little bag, oh, this is good, isn't it? The AMD screws are not only named, they're, oh, Cougar, no, oh, I was about to say how good of a job Cougar had done. I was about to say, not only have they named them, they've color-coded them red for AMD, but no, the red ones are Intel. I mean, hell. I mean, really, come on, guys. Honestly, it would be funny if the AMD ones were blue, wouldn't it? On a serious note, though, that is a good idea. Someone should definitely color code these blue and red for AMD and Intel. That would be amazing. Oh, oh, you've got to be joking me. The next step, now I've cleared up my mess, is to then go ahead and slide the motherboard into the case. Now, this case is already set up for an ATX board, so all the standoffs and stuff are going to be in the right locations. And then you can just slide the board in. And we've got some raised standoffs, which will hold the board into place. Cougar do give you a box of screws, which makes my adventures with our screws drawer even more annoying. But instead of using theirs, I tend to use my own, as I just like them organized like this. It makes me happy, okay? 10 screws in total. We do have to remove the M.2 heatsink to get to the middle one, so just bear that in mind. 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. With the motherboard in, the next step is to install the radiator. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and probably have the tubes on the, I guess the right-hand side is normally what I would go for. Yeah, that's good. So I need to also add the fan unit. This, I don't think it's called Unifan. I think that's someone else's name for it. But anyway, I'm going to put this fan unit here with the RGB strip facing outwards so we can see it. I'm just going to flip the whole thing over while I actually go ahead and screw this unit into place. Interestingly, this is actually slightly wider than the radiator itself, so just be aware of that if your case has more limited clearance. Once the cooler's on, I'm then going to tighten up the 4 thumb screws with a screwdriver, plug in the USB cable for the screen, and then snap the screen on, which is easy and magnetic. And as you can see, it just comes on and off. Super simple, which is great. Power supply's next. I'm going to pop in the 850 watt unit I talked a little bit about earlier on. And I'm also going to run you guys through which cables we need and which cables we don't need. Now, you can see we've got our power supply there with all of our interface. And then in terms of cables, we need a few different things. So we need one of these, which is an 8-pin CPU connector, and you can see it's labeled CPU there. We will need another one of those as well. I found it. I found it. There we go. We've got another one. So you can see that one's also labeled CPU. So we'll want both of those. GPU power cable, that's one with the yellow ends. Why are the ends yellow, you might ask? It's so you can see if they're not fully plugged in, which is very clever. We need a motherboard power cable, which is the largest of the bunch. So you can see here it's got that nice big end on it. And then we're also going to chuck in, for good measure, a SATA power harness. That's one of these ones with little SATA and the Molex connectors on. That's for powering up the integrated fan and a RGB hub, which is nice and simple. Motherboard cable goes to the far right-hand side. And I'm also going to plug in all the front panel cables, so the HD audio to the bottom left, the additional USB 2.0 for the screen at the bottom, the JFP1, and then both the USB Type A and Type C, which are in some slightly cumbersome places in this case, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, so one piece of slightly frustrating news, I can't get the CPU power cables in with the radiator, so you either need to put the CPU power in first, or be aware that this is a bit of a challenge. It is frustrating when this is the case. If the radiator was on more of a quick release bracket, that would make life a lot easier, but unfortunately it is not. So I'm going to have to take it out manually. There we go, like that. Then I can go ahead and put the CPU power cables in. Now, graphics card installation time. So I'm going to hover the GPU over the slot just to see kind of roughly where we land. I'll be removing the second and third PCI lanes in the case today. So there, of course, is the first one. And these screws, of course, we're going to use to fasten the GPU in once we've done this. And I'm then going to push the little lock to actually open the PCI latch. I'm going to slide our RTX 5080 Expert. Yeah. There we go. I'm then going to lock that slot back into place so the card won't come out. Refasten the GPU support bracket. A bit tight, but we'll get there. Ugh. The only thing I am worried about is the clearance for the PCIe cable, which I'm hoping is going to be fine. I guess there's only one way to find out, and that's to actually thread the cable through and actually secure it into place. I am going to go ahead too and just wire up this RGB hub at the back. I mean, I haven't really done any cable management yet, but it's a testament to this case that it's so tidy. That's going to be really easy. Once they're actually tucked down out there, this cable, the slack is taken off that, and whatever this is, that's our fan cable for the cooler. Once that's plugged in, then I think this should turn on. So moment of truth time, power cable goes in, switch at the rear goes to the on position, our power button. Oh, okay, we've got something. Screen's on, no fans. Aha, yes, there was one loose connection at the back. Wow, look at that. Oh my goodness, that looks good. Wow, and the screen's come on as well. It says Cougar, so we're gonna presumably have a look at that shortly. Is a couple of front panel cables left to tidy, but that radiator looks super nice with that one continuous strip. The screen, presumably if you take it off, it turns off, and if you put it back on, it turns back on, and the orientation for that can be adjusted, I guess, in software. But yeah, what a good start, and what a great looking build. Give me a few moments, I'm gonna get this configured and make all the screens function and look nice, and then see if they're actually any use. Performance. How does this build actually stack up? Well, to find out, I've put it through its paces in a lot of the most popular and the latest AAA titles. For benchmarking purposes today, I'll be using this MSI stunning 322 URX QD OLED. It's got a 240Hz refresh rate, 3840 by 2160 QD OLED panel, and a super rapid 0.03 millisecond response time. Now, testing was done primarily at 4K. After all, this is a 5080 powered build with an X3D CPU, and the results were pretty good. Kicking off with the brand new Arc Raiders, and at 4K high settings, this build achieved a pretty stunning 136 frames per second on average. It's known for being a fairly demanding title when it comes to performance overhead, so as such, I was pretty pleased with this. Move through into Call of Duty's new Black Ops 7, and here at 4K high settings, across the board, rasterization, so no DLSS, no FSR, no frame generation, and the build achieved a pretty solid 94 frames per second on average. Moving through into the new Battlefield 6, once again here at that 4K high preset pretty much across the board, and the system broke through the triple-digit FPS mark with an average of 104. Heading over to some slightly older but still popular titles, and Marvel's Rivals actually provided one of the lowest frame rate results today. This is an incredibly demanding game, and one where even on a 5080 you might have to drop the res down a little bit. 4K high to be precise, and the frame rate sat at just over 86 frames per second. Fortnite, as ever, was tested at 1080p competitive settings. That's everything to low except the render distance, which was set to far, and here the frame rate skyrocketed to over 430 frames per second. That is mental. Well, finally, in the benchmark mode of F1 2025, one of my personal favourite games, 4K high settings, the build achieved over 150 frames per second on average. What do you guys think of this particular system? I like this Cougar case. I think the floating design is really nice, although I'm not 100% sure I'd go for the expensive model with the screen on the side. After all, the cooler ticks that box nicely, and I actually think saving the cash is the best thing to do. Maybe put it towards some memory based on RAM prices right now. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to get subscribed. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.